Ladies and gentlemen, some of you have spent your entire life believing you are weak because of what you've been through. But what if I told you the pain didn't come to destroy you? It came to reveal the power you never knew you had. The battles, the rejection, the sleepless nights, the silent tears. They were building a version of you that cannot be broken. And before this video ends, you're going to realize something that could change your mindset forever. You are far stronger than you think. And the reason you must remember that is because life will keep testing what you believe about yourself. Every new level comes with new pressure. Every assignment comes with resistance. Every dream attracts opposition. But opposition is not proof that you should stop. Sometimes opposition is confirmation that what you carry matters. And there are people who quit too early because they misinterpreted struggle. They thought difficulty meant they were going the wrong direction. But some roads are difficult because they lead somewhere powerful. Some battles are intense because your future is valuable. The enemy of your growth is not pain. The enemy of your growth is believing pain has the final word, and it does not. And you have to stop measuring your potential by your present condition. A seed buried in the ground looks powerless until the day it breaks through the soil. And when that seed is underground, nobody applauds it. Nobody celebrates it. Nobody sees the process happening beneath the surface, but growth is still taking place. And that's where many of you are right now. An invisible growth and silent preparation, an internal transformation. And you think nothing is happening because nothing is visible yet. But strength is being developed in places nobody can see. Discipline is being built, wisdom is being built, patience is being built, endurance is being built. And in one day, what was hidden will become undeniable. And you must learn how to survive seasons where results are delayed. Anybody can stay motivated when everything works out quickly. But can you remain committed when progress is slow? Can you keep believing when doors stay closed? Can you keep showing up when life gives you no applause? And because champions are not built in comfort, they are built in consistency. And there are moments when your emotions will tell you to stop. Your feelings will tell you you're exhausted. Your mind will tell you you're not enough. But feelings are temporary. If you let temporary emotions control permanent decisions, you will abandon your future every time life becomes uncomfortable. And do not surrender to temporary weakness. And rest if you need to. And cry if you need to. And step back and breathe if you need to. But do not quit. And you have come too far to abandon yourself now. And think about everything you already survived. There were moments you thought would completely destroy your spirit. Moments where you didn't know how you would recover. Moments where your heart felt shattered into pieces. Yet somehow, piece by piece, day by day, you kept moving. And that means there is something inside you greater than the storm around you. And a weak person would have already disappeared. And a weak person would have already surrendered. And a weak person would have already stopped dreaming. But you are still here, and still fighting, and still hoping, and still searching for purpose. And in the fact that you are still searching means your destiny is still calling your name. And some of you are carrying wounds from words spoken over your life years ago. Somebody told you that you would never succeed. Somebody made you feel small. Somebody convinced you that your voice didn't matter. And even though years have passed, those words still echo in your mind. But listen carefully. People can speak from their opinions, but opinions do not define your identity. And just because someone failed to see your value does not mean you are without value. And diamonds are still valuable even when buried in dirt. And gold is still precious before it is refined. And then you are still powerful even in unfinished form. And stop waiting until you feel perfect before believing in yourself. Perfection is an illusion that keeps people trapped in procrastination. Growth is messy. Progress is imperfect. Transformation takes time. And do not let the fear of imperfection stop you from becoming extraordinary. And there are dreams inside you that have been starving because you keep feeding your doubts instead of your faith. Every time you say, maybe I can't, you weaken your own momentum. Every time you speak defeat over your future, you create chains around your own potential. And your words carry power. And speak life over yourself even when life feels heavy. And speak victory before you see evidence. And speak hope while standing in uncertainty. And because there is something powerful about a person who refuses to speak death over their destiny. And some of you have been carrying guilt for too long. You keep replaying your mistakes like a movie in your mind. You keep punishing yourself for seasons you already survived. But hear this clearly. You cannot move into your future while dragging the chains of your past behind you. And learn from your mistakes, but do not live inside them. And a lesson is meant to guide you, not imprison you. And sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. But healing begins the moment you stop identifying with your worst moments. You are more than the mistakes you made, more than the failures you experienced, more than the doors that closed, more than the relationships that ended, and your story is still being written. And do not allow one painful chapter to convince you the entire book is ruined. And there is still beauty ahead of you, and there is still growth ahead of you, and there is still purpose ahead of you. But purpose requires courage, and not loud courage, and not fearless courage, but quiet courage, the kind that wakes up every morning and keeps going despite uncertainty, the kind that keeps believing after disappointment, the kind that keeps building even when results are invisible. And that kind of courage changes lives. You have to understand something about storms. They reveal foundations. When pressure hits your life, what you truly believe about yourself becomes visible. If your identity is built only on comfort, struggle will shake you apart. But when your identity is rooted in purpose, storms may bend you, but they cannot break you. And in some of you are discovering strength you never knew you had because life forced you to find it. And pressure introduced you to your resilience, and pain introduced you to your endurance, and loneliness introduced you to your inner voice, and struggle introduced you to your power. And the very things you wanted to avoid became the tools that shaped you. And then now you cannot afford to shrink back into fear after everything you survived, and walk differently, and think differently, and speak differently, and carry yourself like somebody who knows they were created for more. And confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is agreement with the truth about your potential. It is refusing to insult your own future by constantly doubting yourself. It is understanding that you do not need to have everything figured out to take the next step. And some of you keep asking, what if I fail? But what if you succeed? And what if this is the season everything begins to change? And what if the pain was preparing you instead of punishing you? And what if the closed doors protected you from the wrong path? And what if the delays were developing maturity before the opportunity arrived? And you cannot always judge your life by what you see in the moment. Some things only make sense in hindsight. Some prayers are answered through redirection instead of arrival. And trust the process even when you do not fully understand it. And because every season carries purpose, and the hard seasons teach endurance, and the lonely seasons teach self-awareness, and the uncertain seasons teach faith, and the painful seasons teach strength. And one day you will realize you were growing in ways you never noticed. And the person you are becoming right now is stronger than the person you used to be. Maybe not louder, maybe not more comfortable, but stronger. And because strength is not always visible on the outside, and sometimes strength is choosing peace instead of revenge, and sometimes strength is staying disciplined when distractions are everywhere. And sometimes strength is walking away from what no longer serves your purpose. And sometimes strength is believing in yourself while standing completely alone. And if nobody has told you this lately, let me remind you, you do not need everybody to believe in you for your future to happen. And some people will misunderstand you, and some people will underestimate you, and some people will leave before they see your breakthrough, and let them. And not everybody is assigned to your journey. And stop exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth to people determined not to see it. Your energy is too valuable to waste chasing validation. The moment you realize your value is not dependent on public approval, your mindset begins to shift, and you stop begging for attention, and you stop shrinking to fit in, and you stop apologizing for your ambition, and then you start walking in purpose with conviction. And because deep down you know there is more inside you than what the world has seen so far. And there are ideas in you waiting to be released. And there are gifts in you waiting to be developed. And there are levels inside you waiting to be unlocked. But none of it can happen if fear remains in control. And fear will always give you excuses. And purpose will always give you reasons. And choose purpose, and choose growth, and choose discipline, and choose faith over limitation. And in every day you wake up, remind yourself that survival alone proves there is greatness inside you. You did not come this far just to stop at the edge of transformation. You did not endure all that pain just to remain trapped in the same mindset. There is another level waiting for you, but you must be willing to rise beyond the version of yourself that kept doubting your power. Because the greatest battles you will ever fight are not always external. Sometimes the greatest battle is the war happening inside your own mind. It's the conflict between fear and faith, between comfort and growth, between the voice that says give up and the voice that whispers keep going one more day. And every single day you must decide which voice will control your future. And your mind is powerful territory. Whatever dominates your thinking eventually shapes your reality. If you constantly meditate on failure, fear will become your atmosphere. If you constantly replay rejection, insecurity will begin to rule your decisions. But when you train your mind to focus on growth, possibility, resilience, and purpose, something shifts inside you. And your posture changes, and your energy changes, and your expectations change. And because transformation always begins internally before it appears externally, and some people want a new life without developing a new mindset. But you cannot carry greatness with a defeated mentality. You cannot step into bigger opportunities while still believing small thoughts about yourself. Expansion requires mental growth, and that means there are certain lies you must stop believing. And stop believing you are too broken to recover. And stop believing your best days are behind you. And stop believing you missed your chance. And stop believing you are unworthy of success, peace, love, or purpose. And the fact that you are still breathing means your story still has unfinished pages. And there is power in unfinished people who refuse to quit. And you may not be where you want to be, but you are no longer where you used to be. That matters. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes growth looks like surviving days that once would have destroyed you. Sometimes growth looks like controlling emotions that once controlled you. Sometimes growth looks like walking away from negativity instead of entertaining it. And do not underestimate small victories. And small victories create momentum. And momentum creates confidence. And confidence creates action. And action changes lives. And some of you have spent years trapped in cycles because you keep waiting for motivation before becoming disciplined. But motivation is inconsistent. Motivation changes with emotions. Discipline is what carries you when emotions disappear. And there will be mornings you do not feel inspired. And there will be nights you feel exhausted. And there will be seasons when results seem invisible. But discipline keeps moving even when feelings fluctuate. And in every time you remain committed, despite discomfort, you become stronger than the version of yourself that wanted to quit. And strength is built through repetition. And a muscle grows through resistance. And character grows through adversity. And vision grows through endurance. And purpose grows through persistence. And you cannot become powerful while avoiding pressure. Pressure develops capacity. It stretches you beyond old limitations. It forces hidden strength to rise to the surface. And some of you are asking for growth while resisting the process required to produce it. And you want confidence, but confidence is built through challenges. And you want wisdom, but wisdom is often born through mistakes. And you want resilience, but resilience comes from surviving difficult seasons. And everything you are becoming is connected to what you are overcoming. And that means the struggle is not meaningless, and the pain is not meaningless, and the waiting is not meaningless. And there are things being developed inside you right now that comfort could never produce. And think about how much stronger you are today compared to the person you used to be. Years ago, certain disappointments would have completely destroyed your peace. Certain opinions would have controlled your confidence. Certain obstacles would have convinced you to stop trying. But now you have scars that taught you wisdom. And now you have battles that taught you endurance. And now you have experiences that taught you discernment. And you are evolving even if the process feels uncomfortable. And an evolution requires letting go of old versions of yourself. And some people cannot step into their future because they keep clinging to outdated identities. They still see themselves through the lens of past failures. They still define themselves by moments they were supposed to learn from, not live inside forever. But you cannot carry chains into new seasons. And at some point you have to release the mindset that says you are weak, incapable, or unworthy. That version of you cannot survive where you are going. And where you are going requires courage. And where you are going requires vision. And where you are going requires emotional maturity. And where you are going requires faith in your own ability to rise. And hear this clearly, you are more prepared than you think. And fear keeps telling you you're not ready because fear benefits from hesitation. Fear wants you to delay your purpose until doubt becomes permanent. But growth rarely feels comfortable. Most breakthroughs begin in uncertainty. And the people you admire today once stood exactly where you are now, uncertain, afraid, questioning themselves. The difference is they moved forward anyway, and they acted while nervous, and they tried while uncertain, and they risked failure for the possibility of transformation. And you must do the same. And do not let fear make decisions for your future. And fear will tell you to stay silent when your voice matters. And fear will tell you to stay hidden when your gifts are needed. And fear will tell you to stay small because small feels safe. But nothing extraordinary grows inside permanent comfort. And there is greatness inside you that cannot emerge while you keep hiding from your own potential. And you have to stop running from the responsibility attached to your purpose. And because purpose is not just about success, purpose is about impact. There are people connected to your future who need the wisdom your struggle produced. There are lives waiting to be inspired by the battles you survived. There are rooms waiting for your voice, opportunities waiting for your courage, doors waiting for your preparation. But preparation matters, and a dream without discipline remains fantasy. And potential without action remains hidden. And vision without consistency remains unfinished. And that is why you cannot afford to waste your energy constantly doubting yourself. Doubt drains momentum. Doubt paralyzes action. Doubt keeps talented people trapped in places they outgrew years ago. And some of you have outgrown environments, mindset habits, and relationships that no longer align with who you are becoming. And growth changes your appetite. And things that once entertained you begin to exhaust you. And conversations that once felt comfortable begin to feel empty. And places that once fit your spirit begin to feel too small. And do not fear that transition. And it means evolution is happening. And sometimes growth requires separation. And not because you hate people, and not because you think you are better, but because your future cannot survive constant negativity, limitation, or distraction. And protect your peace, and protect your focus, and protect your vision. And not every battle deserves your energy. And some distractions are specifically designed to pull you away from purpose. And if you are not careful, you will spend years reacting to unnecessary noise while neglecting the assignment attached to your life. And stay focused, and you do not need to explain your journey to everybody. And some people will never understand your vision because it was not given to them. And keep moving anyway. And the eagle does not stop flying because crows make noise. And there comes a point where you must stop seeking approval from people who cannot even see your potential clearly. If you wait for universal support before believing in yourself, you will remain trapped forever. And believe in your future even before others recognize it. And that is what visionaries do. And they see possibility before evidence appears. And they stay committed before results become visible. And they continue building while others continue doubting. And eventually, consistency silences criticism. And some of you are one decision away from changing your life completely. One disciplined season, one courageous step, one mindset shift. One moment where you stop listening to fear and finally trust the strength inside you. And do not underestimate how quickly life can change when your mindset changes. And because your mindset influences your habits, and your habits influence your actions, and your actions influence your outcomes, and everything begins with the way you think. And if you think defeat is inevitable, you will unconsciously sabotage opportunities. And if you think growth is possible, you will begin acting with greater confidence and intention. And that is why you must guard your inner dialogue carefully. And stop speaking against yourself. And stop insulting your own potential. And stop acting like weakness is your identity. And you have survived too much to keep talking like a defeated person. And there is power in your story. And there is wisdom in your scars. And there is strength in your survival. And some of the strongest people in the world are people who had every reason to break but kept rebuilding themselves anyway. And rebuilding takes courage. And especially after disappointment. And especially after betrayal. And especially after failure. And it is easy to dream before pain enters your life. The real challenge is dreaming again after life hurt you. Believing again after disappointment. Trusting yourself again after mistakes. But healing and strength are connected. And every time you choose to rise after pain, you reclaim power. And every time you refuse to let bitterness control your spirit, you reclaim power. And every time you keep moving despite fear, you reclaim power. And then eventually the same experiences that once wounded, you become evidence of your resilience. And do not be ashamed of your scars. And scars prove healing happened. And scars prove survival happened. And scars prove the battle did not finish you. And some of you keep hiding parts of your journey because you think struggle makes you weak. But struggle often reveals depth. It develops empathy. It develops compassion. It develops emotional intelligence. And people who never suffered often lack understanding. But people who survived storms carry wisdom. And your wisdom matters. And one conversation can change somebody's life. And one act of courage can inspire generations. And one moment of faith can redirect your future forever. And that is why you cannot afford to stay trapped in self-doubt. And there is too much attached to your life, and too much purpose, and too much potential, and too much impact. And yes, there will still be difficult days ahead. Growth does not eliminate struggle. Success does not eliminate pressure. Even strong people experience moments of exhaustion. But exhaustion is not failure, and needing rest is not weakness. And taking time to recover is not quitting. And do not confuse temporary fatigue with permanent defeat. And sometimes you are not failing. You are simply tired. And recover and refocus and realign and then continue moving. And because resilience is not about pretending you never struggle. Resilience is about refusing to stay down when struggle appears. And some of you need to give yourself credit for how far you have already come. You keep focusing on everything left to accomplish while ignoring how much you already overcame. And years ago, you prayed to become stronger. And now look at yourself. And you survived situations that once terrified you. And you developed wisdom through pain. And you gained clarity through confusion. And you became more disciplined through hardship. And the process is working even when progress feels slow. And trust your growth. And trust your evolution. And trust the strength being developed inside you. And because one day people will look at your life and admire the confidence, the discipline, the peace, the resilience, and the success, but they will never fully understand the nights you fought silent battles just to keep believing in yourself. And they will not see the tears. And they will not see the loneliness. And they will not see the moments you almost gave up. But you will know, and you will remember the version of yourself that kept standing when everything felt uncertain. And then you will realize that strength was never something you lacked. Strength was always inside you, waiting for pressure to reveal it. And so when life tries to make you question your worth again, remember who you are becoming. And remember the battles you already survived. And remember the fears you already conquered. And remember the obstacles you already overcame. And you are not fragile. And you are being forged. And forged, people carry a different kind of power. And because people who have been forged by adversity do not move through life the same way as people who have never faced pressure. There is a depth in them, a quiet resilience, a certain strength in their eyes that cannot be taught in comfort. They know what it means to lose and still rise. They know what it means to cry in private and still show up in public. They know what it means to carry pain without allowing pain to carry them. And maybe that is the version of you being built right now. And not weaker, and wiser, and not broken and refined, and not defeated and prepared. And there are moments in life when everything familiar begins to shift at once. People change, plans collapse, doors close unexpectedly. And in those moments, fear tries to convince you that your world is falling apart. But sometimes things fall apart because they can no longer support the person you are becoming. And growth often demands disruption. And the old mindset must break before a new mindset can emerge. And the old habits must die before discipline can take root. And the old fears must be confronted before confidence can grow. And transformation is uncomfortable because you are leaving behind versions of yourself that once felt safe. But do not return to old limitations just because growth feels unfamiliar. And you have already come too far, and you have already survived too much. And there are people still trapped in situations you fought your way out of. There are mindsets you once carried that no longer control you. There are emotional battles you once lost that you now have the wisdom to overcome. And that is growth, and not perfection. And growth deserves acknowledgement. And some of you keep dismissing your progress because you are not where you ultimately want to be. But do not ignore how much stronger you have become. A person who keeps moving despite hardship is making progress even when the journey feels slow. And mountains are not climbed in one step. And lives are not transformed overnight. And greatness is built daily, and in small choices, and small disciplines. And small acts of courage repeated consistently over time. And the problem is that many people underestimate the power of consistency because consistency is not glamorous. It is quiet, repetitive, sometimes even frustrating. But what seems insignificant today becomes powerful tomorrow. And one disciplined day becomes a disciplined month. And one disciplined month becomes a disciplined year. And then eventually the person you once dreamed of becoming begins to appear in the mirror. But you cannot become that person while constantly entertaining self-doubt. Doubt weakens momentum. It drains vision before vision has time to mature. And if you feed doubt long enough, you will begin abandoning opportunities before they even have a chance to grow. And you must learn how to protect your belief, and not blind arrogance, and not unrealistic fantasy, but grounded belief in your ability to evolve, adapt, and rise. And because life will test your confidence repeatedly. And there will be moments when people overlook you, and moments when effort goes unnoticed, and moments when you question whether all the sacrifice is worth it. And during those moments, you must remember that your value is not determined by applause. And some seeds grow underground for a long time before anyone sees evidence of life. But hidden growth is still growth, and do not become discouraged just because your breakthrough has not happened yet. And timing matters. and preparation matters. And often the delay is developing the capacity required to sustain the blessing you are asking for. And some people receive opportunities before they develop the discipline to maintain them. That is why success without maturity often collapses quickly. But when struggle develops your character first, you become capable of carrying greater responsibility. And your current season may be developing emotional strength you will need later, and it may be developing patience and discernment and focus and humility and endurance and all the things that cannot be built overnight. And so stop asking why the process takes time and start appreciating what the process is building inside you. And you are becoming more capable than you realize. And there are conversations you can handle now that once would have emotionally destroyed you. And there are setbacks you can recover from now that once would have made you quit. And there are situations you navigate now with wisdom instead of panic. And that did not happen by accident. And that happened because pressure strengthened you. And then pressure will continue strengthening you if you stop resisting every uncomfortable moment. Not every hard season is punishment. Sometimes difficult seasons are preparation for bigger assignments, and because greater purpose requires greater capacity. And capacity is built through stretching. And the uncomfortable moments in your life are often stretching your mindset beyond old limitations. They are teaching you how to remain steady under pressure, teaching you how to adapt without breaking, teaching you how to remain focused when distractions and disappointments surround you. And that kind of strength changes everything. And because once you stop panicking every time life becomes difficult, your entire perspective changes. You stop seeing challenges as proof of weakness and start seeing them as opportunities for growth. And you begin asking different questions. And instead of why is this happening to me, you ask, what is this teaching me? And instead of why am I struggling, you ask, how is this shaping me? And that mindset shift is powerful. And because victims only see obstacles, but resilient people see opportunities to evolve. And you are evolving right now. And even in moments where you feel uncertain, and even in moments where progress feels invisible, and even in moments where exhaustion tries to convince you to stop. And do not underestimate what persistence can produce. And history is filled with people who succeeded, not because they were the most talented, but because they refused to quit. They kept going while others surrendered. They kept learning while others complained. They kept building while others doubted. And persistence creates separation. And every time you choose discipline over excuses, growth over comfort, faith over fear, you separate yourself from the version of you that once settled for less. And you were not designed to live beneath your potential. And you were not created to spend your life imprisoned by insecurity. And you were not born just to survive. And there is something meaningful attached to your existence. And deep down you know it. And that is why you cannot fully relax in mediocrity anymore. Your spirit keeps pulling you toward growth, toward purpose, toward becoming more. And even when fear whispers, and even when doubt appears, and even when obstacles rise. And there is still something inside you that refuses to settle. And pay attention to that voice. And because that voice is connected to your future. And some people silence that inner calling because growth demands sacrifice. It demands discipline when distractions feel easier. It demands focus when comfort feels tempting. It demands courage when fear feels safer. But every sacrifice connected to purpose eventually produces reward. And not always immediately, and not always publicly, but eventually. And nothing built with consistency is wasted. And nothing learned through struggle is wasted. And nothing endured with faith is wasted. And one day the discipline you practice now will become the strength people admire later. And one day the pain you survived will become wisdom that helps somebody else survive. And one day the fear you conquered will become evidence that transformation is possible. And when that day comes, you will realize that every difficult season carried hidden value. And even the lonely seasons, and even the confusing seasons, and even the painful seasons, and especially the painful seasons. And because pain has a way of revealing what comfort hides, it reveals your priorities, your resilience, your character, your mindset. It exposes weaknesses that need healing and strengths you never knew existed. And if you allow it, pain can become fuel instead of limitation, and fuel to grow, and fuel to change, and fuel to become more disciplined, more focused, more intentional. And do not waste your suffering by allowing it to make you bitter, and let it make you better, and let it sharpen your vision, and let it deepen your compassion, and let it strengthen your spirit. And because people who turn pain into growth become unstoppable in a different way. They no longer fear hardship the same way. They understand that survival already proved their strength, and survival has already proven yours. And you are still here after everything that tried to break you, and still standing after the disappointments, and still believing after the setbacks, and still dreaming after the delays. And that is not weakness, and that is resilience in motion. And that is proof that your spirit is stronger than your circumstances. And the more you recognize that strength, the more confidently you will begin walking into the future that has been waiting for you all along. And because your future is not waiting for a perfect version of you, it is waiting for a courageous version of you. A version willing to move despite uncertainty. A version willing to trust growth even when the path ahead feels unfamiliar. A version willing to stop hiding behind excuses and finally step into the possibilities that fear has tried to keep locked away for years. And then the truth is, many people spend their entire lives running from their own potential. Not because they lack ability, but because greatness requires responsibility. Once you realize what you are capable of, excuses lose their power. You can no longer blame your past for every limitation. You can no longer keep shrinking yourself to avoid discomfort. You can no longer pretend that average is enough when something inside you keeps calling for more. And that inner calling is not random, and it is the reminder that you were built for expansion, and built to grow beyond fear, and built to outgrow insecurity, and built to rise beyond environments that tried to convince you to think small. And some of you have spent years surrounded by people who normalized limitation, people who settled into mediocrity and then mocked anyone who dreamed bigger. And after hearing negativity long enough, you started questioning your own vision. But never let people with small expectations determine the size of your future. And just because they stopped believing in possibility does not mean you should. And there are dreams inside you that still deserve your effort. And there are goals inside you that still deserve your discipline. And there are ideas inside you that still deserve to be pursued. And do not bury your potential simply because the journey became difficult. And every meaningful achievement requires endurance. And every transformation requires persistence. And every breakthrough requires a season where you continue believing before results become visible. And that season is often where most people quit. And they quit because they expected immediate evidence, and immediate recognition, and immediate success. But life does not always reward people instantly. Sometimes life watches to see whether you remain committed without applause, whether you can stay disciplined in private before success arrives publicly. And character is revealed in hidden seasons. And who are you when nobody is watching? And who are you when nobody claps for your effort? And who are you when progress feels slow? And those moments matter because they reveal the depth of your commitment. And deep commitment creates powerful outcomes. And the strongest people are not always the loudest people. Often, the strongest people are those who quietly keep rebuilding themselves, no matter how many times life knocks them down. They understand that setbacks are temporary, but quitting can become permanent if you allow it. And so every time life pushes against you, push back with persistence, and push back with discipline, and push back with faith in your ability to grow. And because resilience is not passive, resilience is active determination. It is waking up after disappointment and saying, I still believe there is more ahead for me. It is refusing to let one painful chapter define the entire direction of your life. And some of you need to stop speaking as though your story has already ended, and you are still evolving, and still learning, and still becoming. And there are strength inside you that have not fully awakened yet, because certain levels of strength only emerge when life demands them. You never know how powerful you are until strength becomes necessary. And think about the version of yourself from years ago. That person could not imagine surviving some of the battles you face today. Yet here you are, wiser, stronger, more aware, more resilient. And that means growth already happened. And do not dishonor your progress by pretending you are still powerless. And you are not the same person you used to be. And pain changed you, and experience changed you, and responsibility changed you, and the lessons you learned through struggle changed you. And although some changes came through hardship, they still developed strength inside you. And now the question becomes, what will you do with that strength? And will you continue doubting yourself? And will you continue living beneath your potential? And will you continue waiting for somebody else to rescue you from fears you have the power to confront yourself? Or will you finally decide that enough is enough? And there comes a moment where you must stop negotiating with fear. and stop asking insecurity for permission, and stop allowing old wounds to control new opportunities. And healing does not mean the pain never existed. Healing means the pain no longer controls your identity. And too many people still define themselves by what hurt them instead of by what survived. And yes, you were disappointed. And yes, you were rejected. And yes, you experienced loss. But you also survived, and you also learned, and you also adapted. And you also continued moving forward when giving up would have been easier. And that matters. And never ignore the power of endurance. And because endurance produces transformation that temporary comfort never could. And comfort may relax you, but endurance strengthens you. And comfort may soothe you, but endurance prepares you. And comfort may feel safe, but endurance creates depth. And in depth matters in a world full of shallow distractions. And some people spend their entire lives chasing things that look impressive but leave them empty. Validation, attention, approval, constant comparison. But none of those things can replace inner peace and self-respect. And real confidence is built internally. And it grows when you keep promises to yourself. And it grows when you remain disciplined even when excuses appear. And it grows when you continue showing up despite fear. And every time you act courageously, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. And then eventually you stop needing constant reassurance from others because you trust your own ability to handle life. And that is powerful. And because once a person develops inner strength, external chaos loses some of its control. And they stop collapsing every time life becomes uncertain. And they stop panicking every time challenges arise. And they stop viewing obstacles as signs to quit. And instead they adapt and learn and adjust and continue. And that mindset creates unstoppable momentum. And then momentum is important because stagnant thinking keeps people trapped. Some individuals remain stuck for years, not because opportunity never came, but because fear convinced them not to move when opportunity appeared. And do not let hesitation steal your future. And you do not need to know every detail before taking the next step. Sometimes clarity comes through movement. Sometimes answers appear only after action begins, and waiting forever for certainty will keep you standing still while life passes by. And move with wisdom, but move, and try again, and apply again, and build again, and believe again. And you have no idea how close you may be to a breakthrough simply because results have not appeared yet. Many people quit during the final stretch because exhaustion clouds their vision. They mistake delay for denial. But delayed does not mean impossible, and slow progress does not mean failed progress, and a difficult season does not mean a defeated life. And some of the greatest transformations happen gradually beneath the surface, long before visible evidence appears. And just like roots grow underground before trees rise above the earth, strength often develops internally, before success becomes visible externally. And that is why patience matters. And patience is not weakness, and patience is controlled strength, and it is trusting the process without abandoning the effort. And impatience combined with discipline becomes a powerful force. And because disciplined people continue planting seeds even when harvest has not arrived yet, and they continue learning, and continue improving, and continue growing, and continue believing, and then eventually the results speak for themselves. But before the world sees the results, you must first survive the process, and the lonely process, and the uncomfortable process, and the stretching process, and the process where old mindsets die and strong perspectives are born. And do not fear that process, and embrace it. And because every challenge is teaching you something valuable about yourself, and every setback is revealing areas where growth is still needed, and every difficult season is strengthening emotional muscles you will rely on later. And nothing is wasted when you choose to grow through it, instead of surrendering beneath it. And perhaps the greatest shift you can make is understanding that your life is not happening against you. In many ways, it is happening for your development. The obstacles are developing endurance. The pressure is developing resilience. The delays are developing patience. The responsibilities are developing maturity. And one day you will look back and realize that many things you once complained about were actually preparing you for levels you were not yet ready to carry. And that realization changes everything. And because once you understand that struggle can serve purpose, you stop fearing hardship the same way, and you stop viewing yourself as a victim of circumstance. And you begin seeing yourself as someone being prepared for greater responsibility, greater wisdom, greater impact, and greater strength. And in the moment you truly understand that your mindset begins to rise beyond limitation. And when you leave this moment, I want you to remember this. You were never weak. You were being shaped. Every battle built your strength. Every setback built your wisdom. Every painful season revealed a stronger version of yourself. The nights you cried alone did not destroy you. The rejection did not destroy you. The delays did not destroy you. They were preparing you for a level of strength, discipline, and purpose you could not have reached any other way. And so stop doubting your power. Stop speaking defeat over your life. Stop allowing fear to convince you that your story is over when your greatest chapters have not even begun yet. You have survived too much to keep living like a defeated person. There is fire inside you. There is purpose inside you. There is greatness inside you, waiting to rise and stand up again and believe again and fight again and dream again and walk into every new day with the mindset that no obstacle is greater than the strength being built inside of you. And when life tests you again, and it will, do not break under pressure. Remember who you are. Remember what you survived. Remember the battles that once looked impossible but could not stop you. And because stronger people are not born in comfort, they are built in storms, built in pressure, built in moments when giving up would have been easier, but they kept moving anyway. And in one day, the same struggle that almost made you quit will become the reason somebody else keeps going. Your scars will carry wisdom. Your survival will carry power. Your story will carry proof that even broken moments can produce unstoppable people. And so walk forward with courage. Walk forward with faith. Walk forward knowing that your future is still full of possibility, your purpose is still alive, and your best days are still waiting for you. And no matter how hard life gets, never forget this truth. You are stronger than you think.